Sen.Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll try to be as brief as I can to be able to critique this report. I've listened to my colleagues' submissions in regards to the direction the committee took while they were dealing with this issue of the petition. And Mr. Speaker, petitions are things that it's a right for every Kenyan. But the question that we never ask is what happens? What happens after the petition has come, petition Parliament for a matter to be heard? Parliament spends money, invite different bodies, they come in here, we go through, and then ultimately the finding of the petition is handed to the petitioner to be able to pursue. Does that really help? Mr. Speaker, I've listened to my colleagues make their submissions, and what I deduce from reading the report and also from my colleagues' sentiments is that there is an over-reliance on the morality, humanitarian aspect of this petition, forgetting the legal fundamentals of this petition. Mr. Speaker, we're in a country now where one entity is done away with and a new entity is brought into place. KCC was actually restructured, or it collapsed, depending on how you want to put it, and then new KCC comes in. There is a legal process that ought to be followed to ensure that when a new entity is coming in place, the liabilities of the previous entity is absorbed by the new entity. Mr. Speaker, if we don't analyze this petition properly, and that is why from the onset, I would want to recommend that this House does not adopt this report and recommit it back to the Labour Committee for them to be able to really analyze on the consequences, intended and unintended, of adoption of this report. Mr. Speaker, we currently have staff who used to work with NHIF, is it NHIF? And now they have moved to SHA. Soon, Mr. Speaker, you will hear people coming up and saying that their dues, their terminal dues, their SACCO deductions were not remitted or they were not transferred to the new entity. The courts have already pronounced themselves. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak directly to the petitioner and tell the petitioner, you did a very good job. You did a noble thing because most of the contributors of those circles are aging. I can empathize on the situation. But the reality is this: I want to be practical on what is going to help you and what is not going to help you. I've been in this Senate for quite some time, and I've gone through petitions that have been brought to this House. One of them, which was very, very emotional, is the one of former councillors, where Treasury came in here and said, we do not have a legal framework to be able to compensate them. This one will fall in the same, what do you call it? Category. And that is why it is important, Chairman, that this report be recalled, not adopted, so that you can strike a balance between the legal challenges and the humanitarian, moral, or morality. You have to strike a balance between the two. And my view is this: these staff benefits, provident funds, and related dues, which are coming up to about 204 million. Is it 205 million or 204 million? Without even calculating the issue of interest. The first thing to do is to go back to the law and say, what did the Court of Appeal say? In terms of the legality, there are statutes that dictates on how entities are transferred from being one to another. I think I drafted them down here. Let me refer back to my notes. We've got, in fact, when you look at back in terms of the Court of Appeal 2020 ruling on Civil Appeal number 191 of 2018, which, in its wisdom, the judge absolved new KCC of all KCC liabilities under Section 3, 1, 2, and 8 of the Transfer of Business Act, Cap 99. The first question you must ask yourself is this: are we the ones in this parliament who hinder people from getting what is rightfully theirs? The first thing, Mr. Chairman, you would have done through the Speaker is to look at that piece of legislation, the Transfer of Business Act, Cap 99, especially Section 3, 1, and 2. And ask yourself, why was it drafted there? And what will help these aging former KCC employees who are now languishing in poverty because what was deducted from them was never remitted to the SACCOs? How can you be able to look at that? Do we need to amend? Do you need to sue the AG directly? Because if you rely on the AG's recommendation, I dare say you will not be able to get anywhere. Because, of course, the AG will be able to absorb the government. And the Cabinet Secretary of Treasury will come and tell you, unless your parliament comes up with a supplementary budget, and you allocate those funds specifically to be able to compensate these former KCC through a humanitarian angle, there's no way we can help. But is that not setting a very dangerous precedent to future entities that are transferred from one entity to a new one? Have you taken into consideration NHIF moving into to SHA? Suppose the same case comes up tomorrow. Will you go back and say there's already a set precedent? So Parliament, go back. What about the fiduciary responsibility, Mr. Speaker? So, Mr. Speaker, the petitioner's case, which no doubt is rooted in verifiable salary deductions and constitutional fair labor practices under Article 41, deserves swift humanitarian relief. However, we have to look at the legal aspect of it. And my view is very clear. We've got what I've already highlighted in terms of the Transfer of Business Act. You need to look into that. And that is why I keep on saying this report should not be adopted by this parliament, should go back to your committee. Number two, these claims, have you been able to verify them? Are your findings truly evidence-based? Have you carried out an audit of these claims? And you are certain, without any doubt, that it is true. These former KCC employees, however many they are, their funds were deducted, their terminal dues, is it evidence-based? We also need to look at the PFM Act, I think Section 43, on this petition. In terms of if we were to compensate these people, or if we were to commit public funds in terms of compensating these people, how will it be treated by that act? Will it be legal or illegal? So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the petitioner has a right to sue the Attorney General directly. Because when you hand over the report of the Labour Committee, let it be something that if that petitioner takes it to court and say this is what the Senate found, it is not only going to be based on humanitarian grounds. Yes, I care about you. I worry about your elderly situation. But is that going to put food on your plate? Do you have an evidence-based? Do you have a legal backing to be able to claim that? While at it, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important for us to be clear on how these parastatals are being wounded up, or how these parastatals treat their employees. Every single day, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure my colleagues read the papers, or they are also members of this parliament. Courts have always found new rights, more rights. In fact, employees are protected more than employers. But what does that right translate to? Does it translate to them being happy? Today, if you attend CPIC or even PAC committee, you will find that most of the findings by the auditors is that our own county governments are deducting statutory deductions, but they are not remitting. Is it about time that we come up with a process where when your deductions or your retirement benefits are being deducted, they are ring-fenced in a way that the moment you retire, it is only you who will have the key to be able to go and open that box and get that money, but not having to rely on someone else. 4 months ago, I was even fighting for my own sister with Treasury, who retired as a teacher. And it took 4 years for her to be able to get her dues. 4 years. In fact, most of the money that she ended up getting was to pay loans of the money she was borrowing to come to Nairobi to follow up. It is in Treasury. It has left Treasury. It is go to the Ministry of Education, go to your local office. Why? Why do we make things so difficult for people? This red tape is what is killing this country. We all talk about wanting to advance to be a modern society. But when our own welfare is neglected, how are we going to be able to advance to be that first-class community? People work. On a daily basis, civil servants go to work. They work for 40 hours a week, sometimes even 80 hours a week. Because, in fact, if there are people who are never acknowledged in this country, are civil servants. When we politicians are going through our election circles, they are still there, working. They are still working there. Our secretariat, if we get elected, re-elected or not re-elected, or reappointed or not reappointed, they will still be here. But seldom do we recognize them. Now, when they retire, they now start coming to us, oh, Senator, help me, get my dues, help me. These are my retirement. In fact, there's a gentleman, an older man, who calls me on a daily basis. And he always tells me, please, talk to Lapset? To Mr. Kiilu. Is it Kiilu? Tell him, I need my money. I've done my calculation. I need my money. I go there. This old man is around 80 years old. I go there. I take him there. They meet. They talk. He's paid some little money. He comes back with a new calculation. We need to have a solution to this. To a point where I even feel embarrassed. When I see him calling me, I get embarrassed. Because I don't know whether the money which we agreed is being paid, he has been paid or he has not been paid. So, Mr. Speaker, to conclude, let me say this. We must strike a balance in this House. We must anchor equity to the law. We may need to amend certain pieces of legislations. Every petition gives us an opportunity to be able to see what has gone wrong and how we can be able to stop it for the next generation. So, in my view, although I recommend the committee led by my good friend from West Pokot, I still believe that this House should not adopt this report. This report ought to be recommitted back to the committee. Then you sit down and you look at your recommendations. One of the recommendations which I read and left me wondering what it will yield is where you talk about verifying those dues and also making sure that these people, because of their age, they are given what is rightfully owed to them. I agree with you 100%, but is it practical? Is there laws that hinders? Have we ignored the findings of the courts? The first question to ask, which you should have asked, Mr. Chairman, through Mr. Speaker, is when the assets were being transferred from old KCC to new KCC, were these liabilities also transferred? If they were not transferred, then you cannot now demand that new KCC pays them. You have to look at the assets. I think it was done in 2003. Were they transferred? Were these liabilities transferred? Was everything transferred? And I think the answer to that is very simple. If you look at the findings of the Court of Appeal, you will understand that there was a lot of negligence. So who do you sue? In my humble submissions, the Attorney General, directly, so that this thing can be resolved once and for all. And this is a bit different from the issue of the councillors, because the councillors, it was a moral and humanitarian angle. This has got to be more on a fundamental of the legal process that ought to have been followed to ensure that these hard-working Kenyans who contributed many years for the success of KCC were treated like human beings, legally speaking. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Danson Mugatana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to comment on this report by the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. Mr. Speaker, may I start by commending the chair of this committee, the Honorable Murgor, for the good work they have done on this question that was referred to the committee for resolution. Mr. Speaker, I do not want to repeat what my colleagues have said, except to concretize the facts that these KCC workers were not paid their dues. Their contributions were not paid to them. They sued the company, and Mr. Speaker, they were awarded